I'm Mike Dimas, and this is Pinball Shenanigans. Alright, time for some more Demolition Man action. I was away for the weekend at Maple Pinball. I played in their weekly Friday tournament, and they had like 33 players. I took 8th place. And then they had their monthly Saturday tournament. And they had like 28 players. I ended up qualifying in like 3rd place, I think it was. So I got a bye going into the finals. And, well, I had a good chance at the end there to take it down, but I kind of fumbled on Vulcan, which forced a 3-way tie between myself, John Flynn, and Jeff Teolis. And the tiebreak was on Dolly Parton, and Dolly just wasn't having any part of my game. It just didn't really let me play it. So I took 3rd place. But I did pick up from Teolis my medal from the Manitoba Pinball Championships from about a couple months ago. Because I didn't realize they're giving out medals for 5th through 8th in the main event. So I left without this. But there we go, 5th place. Manitoba Pinball Championships. So what I'm going to do today is see if I can fix the issue on my MPU. I have a column of switches that decided to stop working, and I've traced it down to either this chip here, or maybe one of the traces, or one of these components going to this connector. It's definitely on the MPU. And for the first time in years, I've had a logic probe. I just busted it out of its package. I don't even remember when I bought this, but it has been in my pile for a long time. So this is pretty much my first time attempting to use a logic probe. This is a diagram of this chip here, the ULN 2803A, that I'm going to try and diagnose here. It's a schematic for it. A lot of this is basically Chinese to me, but I'm trying to learn as I go. So this is where I'm currently at. You got to hook up your logic probe. I guess if you're testing chips, then you want to put your red lead on 5 volts and your black lead on ground. So this is a comfortable spot for ground, right on that capacitor there. Negative side of the capacitor is ground. Now it was recommended that I put the 5 volts lead on the other side of the capacitor, but as you can see, well, here's the thing, that capacitor has been changed by my repair guy. So the original capacitor, there would be some legs showing, but there's no legs showing on the positive side of this capacitor. So I've looked up some schematics, and I believe that might be a good spot to get 5 volts. So I just kind of made a post in the Pinball Repair Help group to get confirmation before I go ahead and probe this chip. So under the tutelage of one Chris Hibbler, who is the master of pinball repair, he suggested that I test pins 11 through 18. Okay, here's another thing I learned. If you don't know where pin 1 is on a chip, it turns out that it is, let's see if I can use this as a pointer. Where are we? See this little dot there? That is always pin 1. That's something new. And if you don't have a dot, it is to the left of the notch. So this is it. So we got, and this is how the pins go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then you jump over 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I want to test 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 pins there, right? So each pin represents one of the 8 columns. You know, so on the switch matrix, here we go. Perfect example. Switches. Ooh, I'm zoomed right in here. So you got 8 rows of switches, and then you got 8 columns of switches. So 11 through 18 represents this. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Or maybe the other way around, I'm not exactly sure. So for me, it is this column, focus, that decided to stop working. All these switches, every single one of them. Oh, and I also learned from Doug Bard at Maple Pinball. I was talking to him about this issue, and Shane Jackson. Doug said that Williams, in later revisions of this board here, actually had this chip socketed from the factory because, you know, operators from time to time would short like a switch matrix voltage to a lamp matrix voltage, or maybe a solenoid voltage when they're working on the machine, and would just blow this chip. This would be the victim of that. And so Williams started figuring that out and decided to socket this so that it was easy for the operators to just pop in a new one. So that begs the question, was this originally socketed on mine, or is this factory? Let's have a closer look here. Well, see that 9th pin there? Looks like there's a little bit of scrapage going on there. I would say this is most likely not factory. This chip here has been changed. Definitely not factory. You can see maybe some evidence of it being worked on. Some scrapes on the traces. So I'm guessing whoever had this board before me replaced these. I don't think this is factory. Anyway, the idea of this logic probe, apparently this is like a TTL thing and not a CMOS thing. Don't ask me what that all means. And apparently I'm testing pulse, not memory. I don't even know what memory is. I just know that apparently, I'll have to double check, but they're supposed to like pulse high, I guess. Here we got a high and a low. All those pins should pulse high, 11 through 18. If one of them does something different than the others, then we know we can blame the chip. And I guess it's possible I could have shorted something under the playfield while LEDing the machine, and I caused this issue. Or it's possible that, you know, once a board has experienced some corrosion, it kind of like, and if it's not properly abated, it can kind of like grow like a fungus and kind of creep around the board, and it's almost like it's alive. So maybe some old corrosion that wasn't dealt with very properly kind of like kicked in and killed a trace. So I made a post to see if this spot is okay to grab this 5 volts, just waiting a reply. And in the meanwhile, I went to Kevin's before going to Maple, and I stole my Color DMD out of Johnny Mnemonic, which I have owned for 10 years, and it is finally time to let Johnny go. But I'm not letting my Color DMD go. That's staying with me, and guess where it is going? There's a hint for you. So, while I wait for a reply on this, I'm going to install a Color DMD. And the hardware portion of this is very simple. Remove these nuts. Disconnect this. Potentially for eternity. You never need that connector again, because we're not dealing with high voltages anymore. We're just going to low voltage, like 12 volts, I think it is. Disconnect this temporarily. And then literally pop this off, pop on the Color DMD, just like this. Alright, just like that. So pop off the old display, and then Color DMD will provide you with some new spacers. You take off the old ones that were on these posts, you put in the new ones. They're just shorter, and like so. But then you reuse the old spacers there. Pop that on like that. And you just reuse your nuts and washers. Put your washer down, your nut down, and then make sure you connect this to your ground source over here. And then connect this guy. Pretty sure this is gonna go in this connector here. I'll double check that because I'm already using this one for my truss lighting. So maybe I can use this guy. I'm pretty sure it's that guy. I'll double check, and I'll screw this on and then be right back. The old washers and one nut were a little crusty, so I have got some new hardware I'm going to use. Okay, so hardware is all installed. I forgot to mention there's a lot of mounting holes on the Color DMD, but for this area of Williams, this era, WPC, you basically, like, there's kind of 3 here and 3 here, and you just use the middle of those 2, and that's the correct spot. Ribbon cable is attached to pin number 1. You put the red part of the ribbon on pin 1, and then you confirm that you've done the same on pin 1 on your display board. Ground wire is attached, hardware is attached, nuts and washers, and then I was correct, it is J116. So you just plug in the connector Color DMD provides you, and then you take the connector that was in there and plug it into the Z connector. So now we got both these lines getting hijacked, one for 12 volts for Color DMD and one for 12 volts for my extra LED lighting. So now the part that is not quite as fun, and I tend to screw up from time to time, is the software part of things. So I'm going to go download the file and pop in a USB stick. Okay, I wasn't really going to bother showing this part because there's probably 100 other videos on how to do this the correct way, but I guess none of them show you how to do it the Shenanigander way. So go to colordmd.com, you click on support. Let's pretend we're starting from the beginning. Go to colordmd.com and then go to support. Then go to firmware updates. We're not doing hardware, we're doing software. And then, this is a new display, not an older display, pretty self-explanatory so far. And then, we go find our game, okay, oh, I passed it already. Demolition Man, click on this, okay. So now I got my little downloady icon doing its thing. Let's click on that. Let's go to the folder icon so we can see what it looks like in the folder. Interesting. It's chroma dot. It's got a number 2 there. That's because I've downloaded something recently. What was that? And this needs to be renamed, I believe. We got to get rid of. Okay, what we're going to do actually is delete this. Oh no, that was just the back button. And now I've lost my spot. Okay, here we go. Right click and where's delete? I don't use this tablet a whole lot, and it's definitely a little different. I mean, laptop. Okay, now you do got to make sure that you don't have no brackets in there. There we go. Oh, it was probably my Addams Family was the other file I downloaded before. So that's why there's 2 here. So let's go to, it's so dumb, you gotta go show more options. Like copy should be the friggin' first option. Copy. And now, where the heck is my USB stick? I always have trouble finding my USB stick for some silly reason. Is this it? No, I don't want to remove it. Okay, one moment. Okay, I found it. So, there's my USB stick. It's got to be 8 gigs. It can't be big for whatever reason. Now, where's paste? See, paste should be freaking right front and center, and you got to go show more options. This laptop is weird, man. Okay, now. Is that all we need? Is that all we need? You know, like, I think that's it. So, alright, now. I hope that's right. I mean, it probably is, but this is what I mean. Like, I've done this, like, 20 times, but I always just never know for sure. And I think it's like, it's different for Stern code a little bit. It's different for old Spike code versus new SAM code, or vice versa, whatever. There are some variations. So let's eject mass storage. Is that what I'm doing? Yep, there we go. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, let's pop this guy in here. Yeah, like on the Stern, newer Stern machines, maybe not the newest Stern machines, but like, we're talking like DMD Sterns, you gotta like flick a dip switch number 8 to turn it off and then turn it back on, so each system is a little bit different. So, let's turn this machine on, and then I forgot to read the instructions, but it's something like we had to hold this USB button down until we see programming begin. Let's try that. See, just go from memory here. Hold that down till program starts. Like, yeah, there we go. It's starting. Now I can let go. And if all goes according to plan, in a couple seconds, the LED will go to done. And then we should be in business here. Hey, something's happening. Ooh, look it, look it, look it. Okay, so let's see if we got Color DMD. Ready? Yeah, look at that. Oh, it's on my good setting too. High res. I used to call it Hires, Hires, because that's what it looks like on the menu. And then someone mentioned like AKA high res for like high resolution. And I could never remember Hires. What setting is Hires? I could never remember, but now that I know it's not actually Hires and it's high res, now I remember. Look at that. There we go. Color DMD is installed and it looks friggin' awesome. Oh, and did I mention that since I bought this Color DMD many years ago for Johnny Mnemonic, that is not the current like $800 price tag? I checked and I paid $528 for this very exact Color DMD many, many moons ago. So that is a bit of a savings by using my old Color DMD and not having to buy a new one. So I think at the end I'm going to, for fun, go over all the expenses and show you what it all took on this machine to bring it to the current status. So I gotta go right down. $528 on the list for Color DMD. Alright, let's see if we can probe some logic. So I got a reply from Andrew Spittler, who I believe is responsible for Weebly.nvram.com. I think that's the website, but he makes and sells all kinds of replacement boards for all eras of pinball. And he has done great justice to the pinball repair world, so much appreciate his contribution to pinball restoration and repair. and he knows his shit. So he says that should be fine. So let's give this a try here. All right, we want to probe. Maybe I'll zoom out a bit so that we can see the probe as well as the chip here. So here we go, pin 9, 10, here's 11. My first probe ever. What's gonna happen? Ooh, we get a little high probage. Okay, that's fun. Let's try this guy. I think that's doing what it's supposed to be doing. That seems good. What about this guy? Okay. Alright, so if I'm doing this properly, then I think that means that my chip is fine. So I guess the next step is to pull the board out and check all the traces to see if any are bad in the particular line that I am addressing. Okay, it's actually been a couple days since my last clip there, where I was probing the chip to try and find out what was going on with this CPU. So since then, I did remove the CPU. I put it on the bench, and I tested the traces from the connectors to the chip. There it is there. Just to make sure that there was no corrosion. I tested all the diodes and these capacitors and continuity from here to here to here to here to here, and then even from here to wherever it was supposed to go. It goes in many directions, so I didn't really find any issue with continuity at all. So next thing I did was message my board repair guy, and he said to perform some more logic tests. So I popped in the CPU, and I honestly spent like another couple hours in total doing testing. I'm testing logic at the pins here, I'm testing logic at the pins here, and I eventually just couldn't conclude or discover any actual issue. Like everything just, the chip basically tested fine from my limited experience. So I came down here last night to give it one last hurrah, and I was kind of giving up. I'm like, well, I'm not getting really any replies in my pinball repair help group. So I kind of just reread the information that was supplied to me, and then I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's like one of the other chips. So I finally busted out these schematics that I have, which I don't think I've ever busted these out before. And here is the schematic for what I'm tracking down here. Column drives. Those are the two connectors, 206 and 207. It's pin 4. Well, it's column 4. That is my issue. And that's pin 4. So, you know, column 1 is pin 1, column 2 is pin 2. So it's nice and simple like that. Then I trace pin 4 all the way to what the switch matrix says, which is the 2803 chip, pin 15, right there. So that's making sense. And I go back here, takes me to this other chip, U14. So I'm looking at that chip, and it's not even an LM339. U14 is this guy right here, which is, I can't read that right now, but it's not LM339, which are the ones that are kind of common to go screwy on these CPUs. I think there's several of them. So long story short, I have been testing and testing and testing, probably like for 3 hours worth of testing. But this is good because I really kind of got a grasp of how to use a logic probe, and I wanted to learn that. Oh, and on a quick side note, 1 second here. I just had to check a name. It's Dave Weston. He made a comment about basically kind of creating a jumper tool for testing the CPU. And we kind of went back and forth and talked about a way to do that. You know how you jumper one pin to the next to test the, I showed this in I think earlier in the video, or maybe in the last video. You jumper this, these pins to these pins, and to test the switch matrix. And I was just using an alligator clip, and my alligator clip was touching the adjacent pin, and it was kind of messing up my mojo there. So Dave said, hey, why don't you take like an old lead here from a multimeter and put a terminal on the end, and then you kind of have a more stable way of testing the CPU without it touching adjacent pins. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea. And last night I was about to try and make it something, but this insulation is way too thick to crimp on a 0.100 terminal. So then I moved over to, where is it? Alligator clip. This wire's a little thinner, so what I did was cut off one end of an alligator clip. The insulation's still a little bit thick for a 0.100 terminal, so I shaved down the insulation a bit. I crimped on a terminal, and voila, Dave, check it out. We made a tool. So I put the terminal into just a 2-pin connector, Molex style, right? So I retested this last night. I did this test over again, and basically you have these connectors removed, and then instead of like just kind of holding a terminal on there or holding a alligator clip on there, you actually can plug this bad boy in like so. I put a line on there so you can see which of the two housings has the terminal on it. Well, I mean, you can look at the wire, but just for idiot proofing purposes. So now when I'm testing like so, I can just yoink that over like so, and it's just a more stable way of doing things. So I performed the test again and confirmed for sure that pin 4, none of the switches were registering on the CPU. Therefore, for sure, the CPU is bad. So then I went over to the schematics and I said, all right, last ditch effort, F it. Let's just change out this friggin' 2803, ULN 2803 chip. That's the socketed one, the suspected one. Like, well, why don't I just do that? I mean, it kind of seems like the obvious thing to do. But I didn't really want to go with the shotgun approach. I wanted to actually, systematically try and discover the issue, see it, and then repair it. But problem is, I pretty much concluded that chip was fine and couldn't actually find any issue. So I made a big mess last night looking. In this bag, I went through every single chip in this bag, and there's chips all throughout my bin. They're all over the place. This is, Jim Wilkes would poo himself if he saw this. This is not very organized. And I'm going through every single bag of icy chips here. Like, oh, is this the right one? No, it is not. This is actually I think a gal chip. I've heard of a gal chip. Are gal chips rare? Are they? Well, I don't think so, because I've got like a 6-pack here. Anyway, so by the time I got to the end of the bag, I pretty much kind of forgot what the hell the numbers were that I was looking at. I'm like, there's so many numbers. 7400, 7408. And then I like literally, the last couple of things, I'm like, guess I don't have one. And then I went back to my schematics. And I'm like, what the hell friggin' chip am I even looking for anymore? I completely forgot. I'm like, oh yeah, 2803. So I go back, because I'm like, that last bag I threw in there, what was that very last bag? Oh, I think it was literally the last one I checked. I even looked at it. I threw it in the bag, concluded that I didn't have it. Then I double checked what actual number I was friggin' looking for. And I had, lo and behold, 2 2803 chips. This is a friggin' long story that was not meant to be quite this long, but this is the trials and tribulations of pinball shenanigans. So what I did, I pulled out the old, where are you? Not going to show very well. Toshiba. Why don't you just work? ULN 2803A. And then here is one of the two that I pulled out of the bag. I guess I got to zoom in. ULN 2803A. Right? Okay, actually, the other one, I swear, was a 2803AN or something, which I don't really know what the difference was. Let's see. Where are you? Yeah, 2803AN. Anyway, long story short, after 3 hours of testing, I said, F it, let's just change the chip. And then I put the machine into switch test. And listen. We have success. The 2803 chip went bad on me. All these switches are happy again. What was it? Right ramp enter? Yeah, right ramp enter, I think. Right ramp exit. This right orbit. The 2 pops. This guy here. And the 2 slingshots. So, you know, in hindsight, the very first thing I suspected, one of the very first things I suspected was that chip. And I could have just shotgun changed it out. But I wanted to learn how to actually diagnose and find the issue. So unfortunately, my logic probe test kind of gave me a false positive. From what I understand, how I tested it was correct, and it was testing fine. But I do hear about chips that can test fine, even in a chip tester, but I still actually be bad. But I didn't think it would pass the logic probe test. Anyway, Color DMD's in, CPU's back up and running, and I just even lubricated my elevator shafts because I thought it might not be such a bad idea. Where'd my lube go? There we go. That's done. And now I can finally get to play testing. Yay.